Good afternoon, my friends. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to get straight to the point. The disorder we have seen on our streets in the past 2 weeks is completely unacceptable. Every single perpetrator and instigator must be investigated, prosecuted and severely punished. And as a country, we have some serious soul-searching ahead of us. It'd be easy to take solace, as we so often do at moments like these, in the small acts of kindness, of service and humanity, amid the anger, pain and destruction. The people who ran towards danger to shield those innocent little girls who were attacked by a knifeman. The courageous police officers who stood firm against the malicious mob, against the thugs and rioters. The volunteers who picked up the pieces, swept streets, and quite literally mended fences and walls. They protected and restored that old principle of law and order, the King's peace. It's true that all those people deserve our gratitude and respect. And of course they do represent the best of us. But we cannot use these rays of sunshine to ignore those whose actions reflect the very worst of our society. The racist thugs who attacked a mosque in Southport, the sectarian gang who burned down a Muslim-owned shop in Belfast, the mob who set fire to a hotel housing migrants in Rotherham. We need to ask ourselves how we got here and what we must do about it. Too often over the last 2 decades or more, we have avoided being brutally honest about the underlying social unrest across society, preferring instead the warmth and false comfort of denial and complacency. Bombs have been detonated and we've moved on. Attempted terror attacks have gone without much comment. Wicked and violent crimes have taken place with little said or done. In May, a 9-year-old girl was shot in a drive-by attack in London. 2 weeks later, 3 little girls, aged 6, 7 and 9, roughly the age of my own children, were stabbed to death as they danced to Taylor Swift in Southport. The denial has taken many forms, from displacement to forgetfulness. My friend, Sir David Amess, was murdered nearly 3 years ago by a fanatical Islamist, and instead we found ourselves, for no related reason, debating online civility. And then, 4 years ago, 3 gay men were murdered in an unprovoked attack in a park in Reading. And we were told that we would debate what happened and why after the trial. By the time the attacker was in prison, the country had moved on, and of course, we never did have that conversation. Sometimes the problem is partisanship. Those who should know better are blinded by politics and fail to respect the hard-won British right of equality before the law. After the attack on those little girls in Southport, Nigel Farage claimed the truth is being withheld from us. Later, he justified amplifying this false information by saying he had believed influencers like Andrew Tate and chose to condemn the breakdown of law and order preceding the riots, but not the riots themselves. Now, I want to be clear, this is not leadership. It is deeply irresponsible and dangerous. Later, when gangs of masked men gathered in Birmingham brandishing weapons and, live on camera, threatened female journalists and attempted to slash the tyres of broadcast vans, Jess Phillips, a Home Office minister, chose to justify their behaviour instead of condemning it. Because these were not far-right hooligans, but young Muslim men. One man attacked by these vigilantes ended up in hospital. This was a failure of leadership just as surely as that of Nigel Farage. And it is not the only failure of leadership by Keir Starmer's government over these last 2 weeks. Today, I want to talk about the future of our police and criminal justice system and the problems we face with violence, extremism and social trust. This isn't about the state. This is about who we are as a society. But first, I want to consider the issue of leadership. This has been the government's first real test, and the Prime Minister fell short. When we needed a strong government, we got a party in the mindset of opposition. We needed a leader. We got a lawyer waiting for the case to reach court. These are early days for the government, and government isn't easy, but government isn't a game either. It is more than press releases and retweets, and you can't be wise with hindsight, something Labour mastered in opposition. You have to be determined and aware throughout. You have to be ready to do the job from day one. Public order is too precious, too essential to all of us to be taken for granted. I have personally seen the cost of failure too often around the world and know that we simply cannot afford to allow chaos to grow. But peace and order does not come about spontaneously. It's made possible by the rule of law, reliable justice and the willingness to use force where necessary. It rests upon intangible assets, social trust, reciprocity, respect for the fairness of the law and the knowledge that we all have a stake in our shared security. As Conservatives, we understand that order is not the product of freedom, rather our freedom depends on order. None of us are bystanders. We don't have that luxury. Once lost, public order can be difficult to regain, and social unrest can rear its head, which is why the police response to disorder must always be swift and determined. For officers on the street, policing a violent crowd is a dangerous job. We sometimes hear of the need to go softly and to make arrests later. But visible lawlessness is radicalising. It encourages others to join in and to commit crime. This was a problem that reared its head during the pro-Palestine marches. As Security Minister, I constantly had to encourage the police to make arrests on the day as crimes were being committed, rather than waiting until after the protest had finished. Once people cross the line, they need to be met with immediate and uncompromising force. Sophisticated capabilities need to be deployed, of course, and instigators need to be made an example of. But on the street, sheer numbers, physical force, and a willingness to deploy it determine whether order prevails or not. During a time of national disorder, the police need the total backing of the government, in substance, not just in rhetoric.